We're about an hour away from Sanford's city manager holding a news conference. He's expected to give an update on the investigation into the teenager's death. Meanwhile, many, including the NAACP, are calling for a federal takeover of the Sanford Police Department. Now, joining me live from San Francisco is attorney John Burris. John specializes in police discrimination and abuse cases and actually helped win federal court monitoring of the Oakland, California Police Department and that legendary case of the riders in that police department. John, first of all, let me get your reaction to at least how things are playing out. You've got the city manager coming on Andrea Mitchell's show a little bit more than an hour ago saying that he had a lot to look at. He has the power to fire or ask Bell, the police chief in Sanford, to resign. We don't know what he's going to say, but what is your gut telling you here?
Well, my gut tells me that a poor investigation took place at the outset. He is responsible for that and therefore gave sort of cover to Mr. Zimmerman. And as a consequence of that, I don't know that you can trust the police department. You know, having been involved in these cases, it is important that someone else take a look at this, whether it's an outside agency or a state agency or feds. Now, from my way of thinking, that this looks like a case that should have federal prosecution associated with it. And that means that there's a race component to the actual shooting by the racial slurs that was used and the other statements that were made and the racial profiling, walking while black, etc. So in that sense, it is a case that the feds could easily take over. In terms of the department, the police department, the feds would need to know that there's other conduct that is taking place. There's a pattern and practice that exists in terms of discriminatory law enforcement with that agency. If they do that, right, then that they in fact could, because having been involved in a case like that, I understand that you can take it over, but you must have a pattern and practice. This may or may not be an isolated incident, but it can be for the feds to prosecute this individual because of the racial components of it.
But John, in this situation, the Miami Herald is reporting that the police chief was brought in 10 months ago because of discrimination or alleged discrimination and racial problems within that department. So there, and we saw that town hall meeting where so many people turned up citing instances where they believe there were cases of discrimination and issues with that police department. Would that be enough to forward a larger intervention here?
I'd say certainly the feds could, or a private law firm can, such as what we did. Because if there's a pattern in practice, now in this particular case, what you have is not directly the police involved in the actual killing of this person. What you have is their failure to conduct a proper investigation, and the argument is that because the individual was black, and that there's a history in the department of not investigating and not taking care of a discriminatory form of law enforcement. So you could, in fact, do that. It would be a challenge for the department, but if there's sufficient facts on other cases where you can demonstrate that the department really has not investigated cases involving black victims on the same level that they have white victims, right, then the feds would have something to talk about.
All right, John, thank you very much. I know we'll be talking with you more. We'll see what the city manager says and what happens next. Thank you, John.